Welcome to the meeting of the Pension Subcommittee and Pension Board. Should any member need to leave the meeting for any reason, can they please use the meeting chat to advise of this? If a meeting loses their connection, they should make every effort to rejoin the meeting, but if this is not possible, I'll note their absence for the remainder of the meeting. If you have to leave the meeting due to a declaration of interest, you should remain out of the meeting until invited back in. Would members please mute their microphones when not speaking to avoid background noise? Please start the meeting with your camera on. Your face will appear on the screen when you're speaking. If your connection is poor, you may wish to turn the camera off and see if this improves matters. If it doesn't, you may wish to quickly leave the meeting and rejoin. If you wish to ask a question or speak to any item, please do so by typing into the meeting chat and the chair will then invite you to speak. Although we are operating in a different way, this is still a formal meeting of the Pension Subcommittee and the required standards of behaviour and discussion are the same as in a face-to-face meeting. Unless agreed otherwise, standing orders will apply to the proceedings and the terms of the Councillor Code will also apply in the normal way. Can I also remind members, press and public are invited to attend this meeting. The nature of this meeting makes it impossible to take a vote by a show of hands, and for that reason it's proposed all decisions are required to be taken by roll call vote. To agree this, I require agreement from at least 2/3 of the members present, and can I ask any member that disagrees with this proposal to open their microphone and indicate their dissent. Finally, I would ask that members do not admit any persons waiting in the lobby into the meeting. So I will now call a roll call for members of the subcommittee and board. Bailey Sawyers.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Lynn.
Present.
Councillor Rome.
I'm present.
Councillor McHugh.
Present.
Bailey Keenan.
Present.
I've had apologies from Councillor Crichton. Pension Board. George Ramsey.
Present.
I've had apologies from Councillor Donaldson. Councillor Duff.
Present.
Kenny Dick.
Present.
Claire Shepherd. I'll note Claire's absence. Arthur Nicholl.
Present.
And Raymond Boyd. I'll note Raymond's absence. We'll now move to the main agenda. Item 1. Are there any declarations of interest? Nope. Item 2, apologies. Can any further apologies be intimated in the chat function? Item 3, minute of previous meeting. This is for the members' approval.
Not seeing any questions or queries. I'm taking it that's approved.
So item 4, Tayside Pension Fund Risk Register. This is for your approval.
So there's one change to item 4 that's highlighted in the appendix to the report. Any questions on the risk register? Kenny.
Yeah, I just had one question on the risk register, which was, this risk is about staff shortages and how we manage to get things done basically with the shortage of staff. There's a number of risks that are around that, you know. I just wonder if the other risks have been looked at in the same light, you know, things like the pension administration risk, the first one, that could be affected by that. And there's several other ones I think may be affected by the same position. I just wanted some assurance that these other risks had been looked at and in the same light as this risk 4.
Paul, was up for you to pick up, please?
Yeah, thank you, Bailey Sawyers. Thanks for the question, Kenny. So just to confirm that we have considered those risks in the round in addition to item 5, but we'll continue to review all the risks in the risk register rather, and update accordingly. I take your point. There are a number of different areas that can have an impact on, and we'll continue to review these and make assessments at future. But at this point in time, we were confident in terms of the assessments that have been made in the report.
Okay with that, Kenny? Take silence as agreement. Bill?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just want, I mean, I noticed that as well, and I kind of thought, I know I'm jumping ahead, but it sort of resonated with some of the comments made by the auditors about, you know, administration delays, etc., potentially. So it kind of almost has been validated by that we do have a bit of would appear to be a bit of an issue there in terms of dealing with complex queries, essentially.
Okay, Paul?
Yeah, no, thanks, Councillor Duff, for your question. These are noted. As it says in the audit report, there will be a wider review in respect of the structure to take on board some of the concerns in terms of not just the volume of work, but also the complexity of cases that the team are dealing with. So happy to assess that one moving forward, but also confident in terms of the steps that are being undertaken within the team to have that full and comprehensive review of the structure to enable it as, you know, sustainable moving forward, and we continue to respond to all tasks within the timescales that have been set.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. You okay with that?
Yeah, thanks for that response. Thank you, Paul. Yeah.
Okay, not seeing any other indications. Assuming that item 4 is approved. Veronica?
Thank you. We move to item 5, Pension Administration Performance, Quarterly Update to 30th of June 2024. This report is for noting.
Any questions on this? Hope you could use the chat function, it's slightly easier, but Stephen, I see you've put your hand up.
Yes, thanks, Willie. Just a quick question, just to clarify from my understanding about cases outstanding at the end of the quarter. So both, from the way I read it, both estimates and options have more days to complete this quarter than in statute. I may be reading this wrong because of the way it goes from quarter to quarter, but in the end column, it doesn't know any cases that are still outstanding. So I'm just wondering if I'm understanding that right. And my other thing was just linked to what both Bill and Kenny had raised under that other item, which is, I presume when it comes to administration, it's more an issue of recruitment rather than cost, because obviously all costs for admin are borne by the pension fund itself. And I think it does, as Bill alluded to, reference in the auditor section, that we're looking to benchmark against how other pension funds are doing in terms of number of staff. So just for clarification, it's not a cost issue, it's more a recruitment issue.
Paul?
Thanks, Bailey Sawyer. So just take the second point first, Councillor Rome. So it is an issue of cost as well. We obviously want to administer the pension scheme at the best value for all employers that are contributing to that. So we do consider cost as part of that factor. It can be down to a result of recruitment, but it can also be in relation to areas such as training, etc., of existing staff. So at this moment in time, the team are undertaking a thorough review, looking at other pension structures in terms of how other funds are managed, both to look at not just the level of resources that are within these funds, but also the processes that they go through, so that we can identify the most efficient way to move forward on that basis. Apologies. In respect of your first query, I'm not aware that there has been any changes in terms of the existing format of the report. I'll perhaps offer in the first instance to Mark Anderson, in terms of is involved in the preparation of this particular report. And if Mark is unable to answer that, then that would be great. If not, we'll come back to yourself and all members in due course.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Rome, I wouldn't be able to answer that at the moment. I would be happy to circle back to yourself and Paul with reference to those statistics.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. I've got Arthur and then Kevin. So Arthur, please.
Yeah, mine relates to exactly the same thing that Stephen raised and we were just discussing there. It was just a question of, I'm assuming that last column is the number of cases which were still outstanding, i.e. beyond their days at the end of the quarter, and I'm assuming that our section do a good job of trying to make sure that there aren't any by the end of the quarter, but that doesn't mean that there haven't been some during the period, and I think that's what that's reflecting. It might be useful to, rather than show cases out with statute at the end of the quarter, to show either the total number that were out with the statute over the quarter, or the number or the percentage that were outstanding over the quarter. That might be a more valuable figure to see, because I'm guessing what's happening is there have been some out over the period who've been out with the statute. That's suggested by the fact that what it take to be the average days to complete this quarter being greater than the statute, that some must have been over, but it might be an idea to see either the number who were over or the percentage that were over in that last column, because at the end of the quarter, I'm guessing there's a bit of whip cracking goes on to make sure that they all get cleared by the end of the quarter, and that's why we're not seeing a figure there. I'm just guessing.
Paul, is that possible, or are we constrained in how we have to report?
No, I think it may well be a valid observation from Arthur. I'm happy to look at the format of the report and come back to all members of the board with an explanation, and if required we can review the format of that report moving forward and include a description within the report as well, so all members of the board are absolutely clear in terms of the information that's been presented.
Okay, Arthur, you fine with that? And Kevin? Kevin, you're on mute.
It would be useful for that information that's going to be produced for Stephen and Arthur to be circulated to everyone. That would, if I can ask for that. The question I've got is in relation to the MacLeod recommendations. I take it that brings with it a considerable amount of administration work, and wondering whether it's the onus on the individual that's got their pension to check out whether there's a review there that would leave them slightly better off or otherwise, or is it down to the pension scheme to look at what's happened in the past and make good?
Paul, that one you can answer at the moment, or?
Yeah, thanks, Bailey. So just in relation to your first point, Bailey Keenan, absolutely happy to share that information with all members. In respect to the latter point, in terms of the implementation of MacLeod and where the onus lies, apologies, I'm unable to answer it just now. I'm joined on the call by Jay Solanke, who's currently supporting ourselves from ISIO. If I could offer the question in the first instance to Jay, if he's able to answer it, but failing that, Bailey Keenan, happy to come back with further information for yourself and all members.
Yeah.
Afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so in terms of the MacLeod, I think effectively it'll have to be administered by the fund really, rather than the individuals. But obviously there's quite a lot of communications, etc., that will be needed for this. So again, as soon as that needs to be done, there'll be a full communications package, and we'll have to explain to members as well.
So if potentially there might be a recruitment exercise to deal with it, would there be?
Sorry, Paul, are you happy for me to...
Happy to comment on that one, Bailey Keenan. So as we said in the audit report, we're undertaking a thorough and comprehensive review just now of all other funds in terms of how they're administering not just the existing requirements, but any new requirements as well. And following that review being complete, we will identify what the appropriate resources would be moving forward to undertake these tasks. But essentially, if it means that we need to create additional staff for that period of time to do that work, then we can do. Or alternative, as I've said before, we could look at other areas in terms of the processes that we're going through and free up time in another way. So we'll have to consider these in the round. I notice Robert's got his hand up. He might want to add.
Chair, if I may.
Yeah, on you go, Robert.
So, Kevin, it's a really important point. We've already looked at some additional staff to carry this out. The pension fund will have to work out what the best option is for each individual member and former member of the fund. The onus will be on us to do the work. And you probably know that when people retire, they can choose to take obviously the most favourable pension from them based on their personal circumstances, which you can't predict without doing the work. So you're right, there will be quite a lot of additional work. There probably will be additional staff need to be recruited into the team. That's already started a little bit. But the pension fund are the people who have the responsibility for making sure, for doing all the calculations and working that out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So if there's no further questions on that item, can we agree? Item 5, please. Okay, Veronica, please.
So item number 6, Tayside Pension Fund Accounts 2023-24. 6A, Tayside Pension Fund 23-24 Accounts and Audit. This report is for noting.
Okay, so we've got Rachel Brown and Richard Smith from Audit Scotland. Rachel's going to give us an overview of the findings of the audit and then take any questions from members, please.
Thanks very much. If you'll bear with me, we have the cover letter for our annual audit report and our annual audit report 23-24 in front of you for papers alongside the audited annual report and accounts. And there are certain elements we are required to tell you as those charged with governance at the conclusion of our audit. So I'll just touch on those key points. Take the papers as read. So in the cover letter, you'll see we are proposing an unmodified audit opinion on the annual report and accounts for 2023-24, which is obviously the result you would be expecting from your accounts. But I just say it's not to be taken for granted. That's a good endorsement of your financial management and your stewardship of public funds to get a clean audit opinion. The wording of the audit opinion itself is attached as an appendix to that cover letter, and you'll see the wording in the audited accounts as well. So our audit work is complete bar your committee's approval of the accounts today and subsequent signing of a final set of accounts, which we'd expect to happen later today. And our annual audit report is with you as a final agreed draft. Procedurally, it remains draft until I sign the audit opinion on your accounts. Also in the cover letter, we're required to report any misstatements we identify that management have not adjusted in the audited accounts, and there are no unadjusted misstatements to report. We'll also say there are no adjusted misstatements to report to you above our threshold. So that's, again, an endorsement of the good quality of the unaudited accounts that were submitted for audit this year. A paragraph 6 of the cover letter, there's a paragraph entitled Fraud, Subsequent Events and Compliance with Laws and Regulations. You may remember this from presenting the annual audit plan earlier in the audit cycle. I will pause in case members wish to draw anything to my attention that has not already been brought to my attention through the audit in relation to any frauds, actual or suspected, or any non-compliance with laws and regulations that's not already been disclosed. So I will pause very briefly in case anybody puts their hand up.
So hopefully not, but
hopefully not.
Anybody has the opportunity to contribute? So there doesn't seem to be. So carry on, please, Rachel.
That's excellent. Thank you, Bailey Sawyers. The last point in the cover letter is the representations that we ask for from the Section 95 officer, and that's the other appendix to the letter, which sets out the specific representations that we ask to be supplied to us along with the signed accounts. And just to say, there's nothing unusual or non-standard in that, so there's nothing I would be drawing to your attention in that. So I was going to just run over the key points from the annual audit report now, some of which you've touched on in discussions about caseload and admin. So the substantive part of our annual audit is of your accounts, and the first part of our annual audit report covers that. We confirm that we have not undertaken any non-audit work for the pension fund, or indeed the council, so we remain independent of the audited body. So that's quite an important confirmation to you at the conclusion of our audit. And Exhibit 2 sets out for you how we have addressed the audit risks. So that's not risks for you, that's audit risks to us and our audit opinion that we set out in the annual audit plan, and that just confirms that we have satisfactorily addressed those risks and are content to issue an unmodified audit opinion. Exhibit 3 contains a couple of significant findings from the audit. These are not misstatements, they are areas we have identified for improvement. The first one being around valuation of level 2 and level 3 investments. Your element of level 3 investments, which have unobservable inputs, so it's more difficult to put a reliable valuation on them. They are likely to increase in future years, so we are making that recommendation that you have processes in place to support the valuation that you get from fund managers of level 2 and level 3 investments. And similarly, there's a further disclosure that is good practice to include in your accounts. So we've made a recommendation for that. But overall, that's a really good quality set of accounts, and we got excellent support from pension fund staff. So I'd like to put on record my thanks to those staff for making this a really smooth audit process for us. You'll be aware that Audit Scotland is recovering audit timings after the impact of the COVID pandemic. So being able to bring forward signing dates to September is really helpful to us as an organisation, as well as giving you timely assurance over your accounts. So I do appreciate the support we've got there. We also cover, in addition to auditing your accounts, the wider scope elements of the Code of Audit Practice that cover financial management. And in section 2 of our report, we conclude that your financial management arrangements are appropriate and effective. And we look at your systems of internal control and general financial management controls, and confirm that internal audit also have given a satisfactory opinion for the year on your framework for governance and risk management and internal controls. We also comment on the financial sustainability of the fund, and obviously you've just had a triennial valuation which assessed the fund as 110% funded, so more than fully funded, which has allowed you to reduce employer contributions going forward in future years. So taking that together with your financial management arrangements, we don't have any concerns at this stage about the financial sustainability or viability of the pension fund. So we've made that point in our financial sustainability section. We also look at vision, leadership and governance, which is largely around how you govern yourselves as an audited body, how you run the pension fund, and concluded again that arrangements were appropriate and supported decision making and scrutiny, and that you conduct your business in an open and transparent manner. And also make the note that you had no reportable breaches to the pensions regulator during the year. We do note that the pensions regulator has issued a new general code of practice which brings together multiple previous codes of practice, and there's some new elements in that. So we recommend that the pension fund conducts a review, a gap analysis, to see that your arrangements cover all the requirements of that new code of practice. And we also, in this section, draw out elements of good practice. We like to identify good practice that we can share across other audited bodies, and your climate-related financial disclosures are being drawn out for that. Climate-related disclosures are an area of increasing focus in terms of audit and in terms of reporting and accounts. So that's good that we're seeing good practice here, and it's an area that will develop. So we'll be keeping in touch on that issue and how we as external auditors audit arrangements to tackle climate change. So that's an area you'll see in future annual audit reports. In the final section of our report, we look at your use of resources and your performance. And based on the unaudited accounts for all the Scottish local government pension schemes, Tayside is the second best performing Scottish fund for the year, and it was the only fund to outperform its benchmark for the year. And we do have further analysis of your performance in that section of the report, but we note in addition to your investment performance, we comment on pensions administration performance, and that's come up earlier in the meeting. Tayside, in common with other pension funds, is seeing an increase in the workload and in the time taken to process that workload, given the complexity of cases as well as the number of cases that are coming up. So you're not alone in that regard, but we have, as you've observed, made a recommendation in that regard. And just to say that Dundee City Council, as the administering authority for the pension fund, we've concluded that it has appropriate arrangements in place to secure best value. So there's no specific best value work carried out at the pension fund, but we take assurance from the arrangements at the administering authority. And just at the end of the annual audit report there's a short action plan which sets out agreed management responses and timescales, which we are content with, and also notes that there are still prior year recommendations ongoing, and we have revised actions there. So I was going to pause there and take any questions on the report or the audit process. You're asked to consider our findings before you approve the accounts for signing. So hopefully I've covered key points for you. Thanks
Thank you,
very much.
Rachel. Any questions from any members? Not seeing any. Oh, Bill.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm not sure if it actually is a question for Rachel or not, but and given the discussion we've had about administration, I did note that the administration costs had jumped quite a lot in the last financial year compared with the sort of last few years. And is that just an illustration of the more complex and the number of cases we've got? Because it seems to have jumped from about, I don't know, 1.8 million to 2.2 or 2.3, something like that. I think it's on page 13 of the accounts, I think page 53 overall. So I just wonder if that was worth commenting on or not.
Rachel, is that something you're able to comment on?
I think officers would be best placed to comment on the detail, but I don't think Tayside is alone in seeing that change. So I'll pause and let Mr. Thompson come in.
Oh.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you, Councillor Duff, for the question. So I think it could be a broad range of factors, Councillor Duff, that are contributing to the increase, not least, the cost of inflation and pay awards, etc., over that period. But as Robert Emmett highlighted, there have been additional administration staff already taken on board to reflect the additional workload or the initial workload associated with the implementation of McLeod, etc. So, I mean, it could be a broad range of factors that are contributing to that, and that's one of the key KPIs that we manage in terms of our monitor, rather. It's reassuring that the audit has identified that the fund is managed on a best value basis, and also that the costs are not something that's specific to our own fund, and that other managing authorities have had similar challenges.
Paul, you fine with that?
Yeah, fine with that response. Thanks, Paul.
George.
Yeah, thanks. I never seen anything in the report on certificate of protections, and I wonder if you looked into how these are being used, or how many are given out each year.
Rachel, is there something you can comment on, or?
I was going to say, if that was a question for me, the very short answer is no, unless Richard Smith is going to jump in on the detail. That's not an area I have looked at.
Yeah, I don't think you're maybe getting an answer then, George. Paul, was that something you're able to comment on, or maybe speak to George out this meeting about?
Yeah, thank you, Bailey. So, George, happy to have a discussion with colleagues at Audit Scotland in terms of the particular work that was involved over the course of the year and whether any work was undertaken in that area, and feed that back to you.
Right, thanks, Paul.
Okay, I'm not seeing any further indications of questions. So firstly, thank you, Rachel, for that presentation. And then I guess we need to approve these individually. So item 6A, taking it, that's approved. And 6B and 6C. Okay, Veronica, back to you, please.
So we'll now move on to item number 7. Annual Treasury Management Activity 2023-24. This is for noting.
Any questions on item 7? Seeing no indications, so I'm taking that as approval. Okay, Veronica, please.
Thank you. We now move to the confidential part of the meeting. So I would ask for any members of the press or public to leave the meeting, and I'm also going to stop the recording.